Hello everyone, my name is Bradley, and today we're going to talk about real estate and the effects that the pandemic has been having on us. And joining with us today is Don Fuerth, the owner of Fuerland Realty Brokerage. So thanks for joining us, Don.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I've always been known not to be quiet and a big talker, so fits right in with your program, I hope so.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So I know that you've been in the real estate game for quite a while, for over 32 years now, and you are like a specialist when it comes to like appraising properties as well. In fact, you actually appraised this property here, the one that I'm currently at. So thank you for that. But tell me a little bit about you and your business.
Well, I've been in real estate for over 32 years. I got my award maybe 6 months ago for being in, and I've sold just about every type of property going during that time. I kind of diversified in the last few years into appraisal, and I do appraisals all across Southern Ontario as well. And I have sold real estate pretty well across Southwestern Ontario too. My company, I started off working for a small operation, a small family-owned company, and single-man private ownership type deal. And then I moved on to Sutton Group, and then from Sutton Group, when it folded, I opened Fuerland Realty. At the time, I started off here with 22 real estate agents, and that was fine. We did well, except I wanted to be out in the field selling rather than being a broker. So eventually we phased that part of the operation out. And then I moved on from there into doing appraisals. And now I have my ACI, which is the highest qualification you can get as an appraiser in Canada. And plus I have my brokers, so we run both. They have to be separate because obviously we can't list or sell a property with appraise, so there is a fine line there that we follow very closely. And we opened here, we've been here 22 years now, so don't remember the exact date. And as I say, we opened with 24 agents, and at one point in time I had 6 appraisers working for me. And I just found that I was better off working as a sole person than as a manager, because my skills were in actual selling and appraising, and I wasn't happy being an administrator. So now there's just myself. I have 3 candidate appraisers with me. I have a 4th candidate appraiser in Chatham, and she works there. So we pretty well do appraisals from Windsor. I've been as far as Niagara Falls, Sarnia, London, because I do have some specialties, like in the agricultural industry especially. I was a farmer. I like to tell people that this is my 3rd life or 4th life, because I started off teaching high school. I liked that, was successful at that, but I wanted to do something different, and I went into farming. And after farming, I did a little bit of construction, and then I ended up doing real estate, and now I've been doing appraisals for 30 years now. So I'm hoping this is my last career. I like to tease my wife that I'm going to be a brain surgeon next, but she doesn't quite go along with that. So anyhow, but that's pretty well been my career, and so far. I'm hoping many more years, but.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a long history there, and good luck if you become a brain surgeon. Wish you all the best with that. And
My hands are a little bit too steady for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so we're here talking about real estate and the impact that COVID has had on us. Do you mind talking about what you've seen shifting in the last year compared to previous years, especially when it comes to like appraisals?
In appraisals, we have an issue because we're used to, to do an appraisal properly. You go through a house, you check the furnace, and you look for various faults within the house and good points within the house. And then COVID come along, and people don't watch in their house because they don't want to get COVID. Appraisers don't really want to go into houses because the possibility is there. When COVID first started, the rule was that you turn on all the lights, open all the doors so that we don't have to touch anything, and go sit in your car or go for a walk outside, do something and let us go through. But people were still concerned that we might be bringing COVID in. So then the Appraisal Institute come along and said, well, if they don't want you in the house, you can do the appraisal and have them send the pictures that you want. So we come up with forms that we sent them to indicate what pictures we wanted and didn't want. The problem is that property owners aren't all that diligent with sending all the pictures, or they send them in a format that we really can't use, or they're distorted or something. There was always a problem. So it's made it difficult to the point where we have to put a disclaimer in every report saying because of COVID we couldn't do a complete inspection. Should this appraisal become invalid or differ at some future time, we reserve the right to go back and reappraise. But it has been very difficult, and it's been very difficult for the appraisers. It's very difficult for the homeowners. We never know for sure if the pictures they sending us are their own property. So it's been hard. And then, of course, with the current market situation, it's been even harder. Like I say, I've been around for 30 years, and I'm seeing houses that 30 years ago or even 10 years ago I would have appraised for $100,000 being sold for $300,000, $400,000. And it is, as an appraiser, it is difficult to keep up with the market, and yet appraisals are built on sales. And if you have willing buyers and willing sellers willing to pay $500,000 for a house that 5 years ago I would have appraised at $125,000, what is the value? The value is willing buyer, willing seller. But it's there's a lot of pressure on us too, and the market being as hot as it is, it's a lot of pressure to keep up with the market. But the price keeps going up, and it's difficult.
One thing I really like that you said there, Don, was how you put a disclaimer, and you're just very transparent and just honest about the difficulties of appraising a home now that everything is shifting online, right? And I think that's great that you're overcoming these challenges. So speaking of challenges, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges you see in the market right now?
Well, the biggest challenge in the market right now is supply. When you have a house, every house that comes up has 10 offers on it, and sometimes you end up with a house selling 200,000 over. That's a challenge. My concern is that at some point in time, interest rate is going to move from 1.5%. Supply is going to equal demand, and I think realistically, at some point in time, interest rates have to go up. And when you first buy a house, for the first 10 years, all you're paying is interest. Well, if that interest goes from 1.5% to 3% or 4% or 5%, and you qualified at 1.5%, or you're used to paying 1.5%, you're going to be in for a rude shock. Secondly, I think when supply equals demand, we have builders out there now that are putting houses up as fast as they can because it's a good market for them. But at some point in time, there's going to be a problem. Like we never For almost 20 years, nobody built an apartment building in Windsor. And now you drive around, there's apartment buildings going up everywhere. Where I live, just off Banwell Road, they put up 3 big apartments right there. And I've done an appraisal on another property on that street where they want to put up a 120 unit apartment building. So it's, sooner or later, supply is going to equal demand. And the problem I see in the future is I think there's going to be maybe not a crash, but I think you're going to find that a lot of these houses aren't going to be worth what they are now. And the lenders look for somebody to blame. They're going to look at the appraisers. They're going to look at the real estate agents, especially private lenders. Private lenders are notorious for looking for the first person they can sue. So it's a problem. Like I was around in 2007, and when the B lenders moved out of the city, and the B lenders moved out, which was fine, so they weren't putting out any mortgages. But what they never ever announced or said was that we're not renewing any mortgages either, And I saw people that had put sweat and blood into their houses, and they lost them all. They were selling 50 cents on the dollar. So, I was around in 2007. I was around in, actually, I hate to say that, but I was around in 1980 when interest rate went to 22%, I can't even convince my kids that happened, but anyhow. So there are problems, and the other problem we have with the way the market is too, people are writing offers sight unseen, just to get in there. They're writing offers unconditional, and then they get into the house, and there's serious problems. Which if an appraiser or a house inspector had gone through would have been spotted. And they don't even have time to research the market, and a good appraiser would at least be able to tell them the value of the house before they wrote the offers, even with the inflated market. So there's lots of problems that I think once COVID is over, once supply catches up with demand, I think we're going to have some issues.
Yeah, I can see that there's a lot of value in having an appraiser, especially because sometimes you miss some things that an appraiser might see. So what do you think? Do you think people should be looking forward to moving forward? Now that maybe the restrictions are loosening up. I know that you mentioned something about interest rates, and you're expecting maybe to see those climb a bit, so that supply is going to have to meet demand eventually. So why don't you touch on that?
Well, I think supply has to be getting close to meeting demand.
Yeah.
You see, like on the appraisal end, like I've appraised 3 major subdivisions that are coming up, and we're talking 500 to 1,000 houses. You look around at the apartment buildings under construction and the amount of units that are going to be hitting the market. I think supply has to be coming close to demand. Obviously, when I'm seeing offers coming in 200,000 over list price, obviously there's a big supply out there.
Yeah.
But everybody wants a house. Like we grew up that way, that you had to own your own house. That you didn't spend all of your life renting an apartment. You wanted to own your own house, and that's unattainable for some people right now. I know, looking from when I sold real estate very actively, and you pre-qualified people. Now they don't pre-qualify; they just write an offer and hope they can get the financing someplace. And sometimes it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's sometimes difficult, especially for first-time home buyers. Absolutely.
Almost
just to get the financing. Like I know for myself personally, like I'm gonna have to think of ways to buy my first home. Probably do some
creative financing. Yeah.
Yep.
Creative financing, and that's not as easy now as it was before either.
With all that being said, thank you for coming on. By the way, how can people get in touch with you, if they are looking to get an appraisal?
Well, we're on the internet, and they call. As I say, we're busy. If I were to show you my whiteboard today, there's probably 15 residential houses to be done on it.
Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and once again, just thank you for coming on.
No problem. It was a pleasure.